Have you ever heard of something in intimacy that sparks amazement in some, embarrassment in others, and pure indifference in the rest? Imagine this. You're in the middle of an intimate moment, everything feels electric, and suddenly there's an unexpected rush of fluid. For some, it feels like unlocking a hidden superpower. For others, it feels messy, confusing, or even a little shameful. This mysterious experience is what people often call squirting. But here's the truth. What women actually feel when it happens is far more complicated, far more human, and far more fascinating than the myths you've seen in movies or the exaggerated clips online. I still remember when I first read about this in a medical journal. At first, I thought, really? People are this divided over one physical response? But as I dug deeper, I realized squirting isn't just about biology. It's about culture, relationships, and how we see ourselves as sexual beings even later in life. So in today's exploration, let's peel back the layers. We'll look at the science, yes, but more importantly, we'll listen to real experiences. The joy, the confusion, the pride, and the vulnerability. Because what women feel in these moments tells us not just about squirting, but about intimacy itself and why it matters at every age. With that picture in mind, let's step back and understand the basics. What's actually happening inside the body when squirting occurs, and why so many women describe it so differently. This foundation will help us untangle fact from fiction and set the stage for the deeply personal stories that follow. Act 1. Setting the stage. What really happens when women squirt? Now that we've teased the mystery, let's take a step back and really ask, what exactly is going on here? Because before we can talk about how women feel about squirting, we have to understand what squirting is. If you ask 10 people on the street, you'll hear 10 different answers. Some will whisper that it's just pee. Others will swear it's something magical, an orgasm on steroids. A few will roll their eyes and say that only happens in movies. And honestly, I get it. When I first heard about squirting, I had the same reaction, confusion mixed with curiosity. But here's the surprising part. Science actually gives us some clues. Inside a woman's body, just beneath the urethra, that's the tube that carries urine, are tiny glands called the Squirt glands. You can think of them as the female counterpart to the prostate in men. During arousal, these glands can fill with fluid, and when the pelvic muscles contract, during orgasm or intense stimulation, that pressure can push the fluid out through the urethra. Sometimes it's just a trickle, other times it's a gush. And here's where it gets interesting. Researchers who studied this fluid found it isn't just urine. Yes, part of it may come from the bladder, but it also contains enzymes from the Squirt glands, showing that it's a unique mix. So squirting isn't a myth, and it's not just peeing. It's a real bodily response, though not every woman experiences it in the same way or at all. Now this is the science, but science doesn't always capture the human side of things. What really matters, especially to us as people navigating intimacy at different stages of life, is what does it feel like? And the answer is as diverse as women themselves. Some describe it as exhilarating, like unlocking a hidden superpower. They feel proud, even special. Others barely notice it happened. They only realize it happened when the sheets are soaked. And for some, it's uncomfortable, messy, or even embarrassing. One woman once told researchers, "I thought I had peed myself." Imagine how that might feel in the middle of an intimate moment. So right from the start, we see a wide spectrum of feelings: amazement, indifference, discomfort. And here's the kicker. None of these feelings are wrong. They're all valid, and they all tell us something important about how sexuality is experienced differently by each individual. This is why squirting is such a fascinating topic. It's not just about biology,
It's about perception, culture, relationships, and yes, even aging. Because how a woman feels about it often depends on how she was taught to think about her body, how her partner reacts, and what kind of space society creates for honest conversation. Now, before we dive into the personal stories, the moments of joy, confusion, and vulnerability, let's pause. Ask yourself, how much of what you believe about squirting came from real conversations, and how much came from exaggerated portrayals in media? If you're like most people, the answer is probably a lot from the latter. And that gap between expectation and reality is where misunderstandings and shame often creep in. In the next part, we'll step into women's shoes and hear what squirting really feels like to them, not from movies or stereotypes, but from lived experiences.
Act 2. Women's Voices and Real Experiences. Science can explain the mechanics, but numbers and diagrams don't tell us what it feels like to be the person experiencing squirting. For that, we need to listen to real women. And when researchers finally sat down and asked women about it, 3 very different stories emerged. Moments of amazement, moments of indifference, and moments of discomfort or shame. Let's bring those voices to life. 1. The amazed. I felt like I had discovered a superpower. Picture this: a woman in her 30s, curious about her body, reads about squirting in a book on female sexuality. With her partner, she experiments. One night, it happens, an unexpected gush. Her first reaction? Pure shock. But then, as the realization sinks in, she feels a wave of pride. She tells the interviewer later, "It was like discovering a hidden part of myself. I felt powerful, almost unique, like my body had unlocked a secret I never knew it held." For women like her, squirting isn't just fluid. It's a symbol of awakening, of sexual exploration, of stepping into a part of their body they didn't know was possible. They carry it like a badge of honor, not because it makes them better, but because it makes them feel whole. 2. The indifferent. I didn't even notice until the sheets were wet. Now imagine another woman, this time in her 40s. She describes being with her partner, reaching orgasm, and then later realizing the sheets were soaked. She laughs as she recalls it. "Honestly, I didn't feel anything special. It was just there. My body did it, but it didn't change how I experienced pleasure." For women like her, squirting is background noise. It's neither a superpower nor a shame. It simply is. And that's important to hear, because in a culture that often tells us what sex should look like, these voices remind us that not everything needs fireworks to be valid. 3. The uncomfortable. I thought I had peed myself. And then there's the third voice, one filled with embarrassment. Picture a younger woman, early in her sexual journey. One night, in the middle of intimacy, she feels a sudden rush. She freezes. Panic sets in. "Oh no, did I just pee?" Her partner looks confused, and she wants the earth to swallow her whole. For women like her, squirting doesn't feel liberating. It feels messy, even shameful. Some don't talk about it for years. Others avoid situations where it might happen again. Why these stories matter? Now you might be wondering why such different reactions to the same bodily response. That's the beauty and the challenge of human sexuality. Our bodies may share the same biology, but our stories, our cultures, and our partners shape the meaning we give to those experiences. One woman can see it as a superpower, another as a shrug, another as a source of shame, and none of them are wrong. What strikes me personally is how much these reactions depend on context. The same physical response in a safe, loving, and supportive environment can feel like liberation. In a setting filled with judgment or silence, it can feel like humiliation. That tells us something powerful. Intimacy is never just about the body. It's about trust, communication, and acceptance. So what we learn from these women is this:
Squirting is less about the fluid itself and more about the meaning attached to it. And those meanings, amazement, indifference, or shame, don't come out of nowhere. They are shaped by our culture, by our partners, and by the expectations we carry into the bedroom.
Act 3. Culture, partners, and the hidden influences. When we step back and ask why women feel so differently about squirting, the answer isn't only biological. It's deeply tied to culture, to the presence of a partner, and to the silent expectations we all carry into the bedroom. 1. Culture, the silent teacher. Think about where most people first hear about squirting. It's rarely in a classroom or from a trusted health professional. Instead, it's usually whispered about with friends, seen exaggerated in movies, or showcased in pornography. That's a problem. Why? Because media often paints squirting as explosive, dramatic, and constant, like a performance meant for show. When a woman's real-life experience doesn't match those images, she may feel confused, inadequate, or ashamed. And because society doesn't openly discuss it, she may not even know it's normal. This silence feeds insecurity. For older generations, the silence is even louder. Many women who grew up in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s were taught that female pleasure was secondary, even taboo. Imagine then how shocking it feels for them to experience squirting without any cultural framework to explain it. Some see it as a delightful discovery later in life, others see it as something to hide. 2. Partners, the mirror of intimacy. Now let's talk about partners. A woman's emotional reaction to squirting often reflects her partner's response. If her partner smiles, reassures her, and embraces it as natural, she's more likely to feel proud or at peace. If her partner looks disgusted, makes a joke, or ignores it, she may carry embarrassment for years. One researcher once put it this way: squirting doesn't just happen between a woman and her body, it happens between a woman and the gaze of her partner. That gaze, supportive or judgmental, shapes the story she tells herself afterward. This is especially relevant for long-term couples and older adults. In long relationships that have weathered decades, intimacy evolves. Our bodies change, our energy shifts, and yet a supportive partner can turn even the most surprising moments, like squirting, into opportunities for laughter, connection, and renewed intimacy. 3. Expectations, the weight we carry. Finally, expectations. Some women go into intimacy with pressure, either self-imposed or partner-imposed, to perform, to achieve squirting as a sign of ultimate pleasure. That pressure backfires. Instead of allowing the body to respond naturally, women may feel anxious, which often blocks pleasure altogether. On the flip side, women who approach intimacy with curiosity rather than performance often describe squirting as a happy surprise. They weren't chasing it, they were simply open to what their bodies had to offer. This tells us something profound. Our mindset shapes our experiences. When sex is treated as a performance, pressure creeps in. When it's treated as an exploration, joy blossoms. So why does this matter for us, especially as we age? Now, why does all of this matter for you, me, and especially older adults? Because aging changes the way we view sex. Hormones shift, bodies become less predictable, and sometimes intimacy becomes less about performance and more about connection. In this stage of life, the cultural noise and unrealistic expectations can finally fade, if we let them. And that creates space for a different kind of intimacy, one where squirting, if it happens, is simply another expression of the body, not a test of worth.
I once heard a woman in her 60s describe it perfectly. She said, "At my age, intimacy is about laughter, trust, and being present. When squirting happened to me for the first time, I was surprised, but instead of shame, I just laughed with my husband. It became a story we still chuckle about years later." That's the wisdom of age, letting go of the scripts and leaning into the moment. So when we think about squirting, we can't just ask, what is it? We must also ask, what story do we attach it to? And those stories are shaped by culture, by partners, by expectations, and by time. In the next part, we'll look at the myths and misconceptions head on. Is squirting just pee? Is it proof of a better orgasm? And why has porn made this such a hot-button issue? Let's separate fact from fiction.
Act 4. Myths, misconceptions, and the truth about squirting. Whenever the topic of squirting comes up, myths swirl around like wildfire. And if we don't pause to clear the air, these misconceptions can create unnecessary shame, pressure, and even arguments between partners. So let's set the record straight. Myth 1. Squirting is just pee. This is probably the most common belief. And the truth? It's partly true, but also incomplete. Studies show that the fluid released during squirting often contains elements found in urine, like urea and creatinine, because it can pass through the bladder. But here's the twist. It also contains enzymes from the Skene's glands, which are unique to sexual response. So, is squirting just urine? No. Is there urine mixed in? For many women, yes. But the key takeaway is this. The body is complex, and squirting isn't the same as losing bladder control. Women who squirt don't describe it as peeing, they describe it as something very different. Myth 2. Only certain women can do it. Another misconception is that squirting is a rare gift, reserved for a chosen few. The reality? Research shows that many women are capable of squirting, but not all experience it consistently. Some may squirt once in their life, others regularly, and some never at all. It's not a measure of skill or value, it's simply one possible response the body may or may not have. Just like some people sneeze loudly and others softly, human bodies express themselves differently. Myth 3. Squirting equals the best orgasm. Movies and certain adult films often portray squirting as the ultimate climax, a sign that a woman has reached the pinnacle of pleasure. But in reality, many women say squirting doesn't feel any more intense than their usual orgasm. Some don't even notice it in the moment. This is crucial. Squirting doesn't guarantee a better orgasm, nor does the absence of squirting mean sex is lacking. Sexual satisfaction is about connection, relaxation, and communication, not about whether the sheets get wet. Myth 4. If you can't do it, you're missing out. This one is particularly harmful. Women who don't squirt sometimes feel pressured, as if they're failing or missing some super orgasm. That pressure can make intimacy stressful. The truth? Not squirting is perfectly normal. In fact, plenty of women have deeply fulfilling sex lives without ever experiencing it. And men, here's a message for you too. Pressuring a partner to squirt often backfires. It turns intimacy into a performance instead of a connection. Myth 5. It's always messy and embarrassing. Yes, squirting can soak the sheets. But whether it's embarrassing or not depends entirely on context. Some couples laugh about it and throw a towel down. Others prepare for it with waterproof bedding. And some decide it's not their thing. What matters most is attitude. If both partners approach it with acceptance or even humor, the mess becomes just another part of intimacy. Why busting these myths matters? When we bust these myths, we create space for real intimacy. We remove the shame, we take away the performance pressure, and we allow women and their partners to simply enjoy whatever their bodies naturally do.
I find it empowering to think of squirting not as a mystery to solve or a trick to master, but as one many possible expressions of pleasure. For some, it's central. For others, it's irrelevant. Both are equally valid. So now that we've cleared away the myths, where do we go from here? In the next part, we'll explore what squirting teaches us about intimacy as a whole, about curiosity, communication, and the importance of creating safe spaces. Because at the end of the day, this conversation isn't just about fluid, it's about trust, vulnerability, and connection. Act 5. Lessons for intimacy. What squirting teaches us. When we strip away the myths, the science, and even the surprise of the experience, squirting leaves us with lessons that go far beyond the bedroom. These lessons remind us that intimacy, at its core, is about curiosity, communication, and compassion, no matter our age. 1. Curiosity over performance. One of the biggest takeaways is this: our bodies are full of surprises, and the best way to meet those surprises is with curiosity, not pressure. Women who approach intimacy as exploration, instead of trying to perform, often describe squirting as a delightful discovery, if it happens at all. And this mindset is freeing. It tells us that intimacy doesn't need a scoreboard. It doesn't matter if you squirt, don't squirt, or never will. What matters is whether you allow yourself to stay curious about what your body and your partner's body can do. 2. The power of communication. Another lesson: communication transforms everything. A moment of squirting can feel like pride or shame depending on the words exchanged right after. If a partner says, "That was amazing, thank you for trusting me," the experience becomes a memory of connection. If the partner laughs awkwardly or stays silent, the same event might turn into a source of embarrassment. This is especially important for older couples whose bodies may be changing in ways they never expected. Honest, supportive communication is what keeps intimacy alive through the decades. It creates a safe space where surprises become moments of laughter, not fear. 3. Letting go of scripts. Squirting also teaches us the importance of letting go of cultural scripts. For years, women have been told how sex is supposed to look. For men, too, there's pressure to perform in ways defined by media. But real intimacy rarely follows those scripts. When we release ourselves from the idea that there's one right way for pleasure to unfold, we suddenly open the door to experiences we never imagined, squirting being one of them. 4. Acceptance as freedom. Finally, squirting shows us the power of acceptance. Some women love it, some don't care, some dislike it, and all of those reactions are valid. Intimacy isn't about forcing a body to do something. It's about accepting what happens naturally and meeting it with kindness. One older woman I spoke with said it best: "At 70, I've learned to stop judging my body. If it surprises me, I just smile and say thank you." That wisdom of acceptance is what makes intimacy beautiful at every age. So as we reflect on squirting, the lesson is clear. It's not a requirement, not a test, and not a performance. It's one of many ways the body can respond to pleasure. What matters most is curiosity, communication, and acceptance. In the final act, we'll tie it all together. We'll revisit the science, the stories, the myths, and the lessons, and we'll end with a reminder that intimacy isn't about chasing any one outcome, but about embracing the full, unpredictable, and deeply human journey of connection.
Act 6. The conclusion and final takeaway. So after all the science, the stories, and the myths we've untangled, what do we walk away with? The truth is simple. Squirting isn't a badge of honor, nor is it a mark of shame. It's just one of many ways the human body expresses pleasure. For some women, it feels like unlocking a hidden superpower. For others, it's a shrug, a background detail. And for some, it's messy or confusing. All of those experiences are valid. What squirting really teaches us is that intimacy is never just about biology. It's about the stories we tell ourselves, the partners who share those moments with us, and the culture that either supports or silences us. It shows us that sexuality isn't a performance to perfect, it's a journey to explore. And maybe that's the bigger lesson here. Whether we squirt or not, whether our bodies surprise us in one way or another, the goal is not perfection. The goal is connection. The laugh shared with a partner after the sheets are soaked, the pride of discovering something new about your body at 30 or at 70, the freedom that comes from saying, "This is me, and it's okay." So if you take one thing away today, let it be this. Intimacy is not about chasing a specific outcome. It's about showing up with curiosity, kindness, and acceptance for yourself and for your partner. Because in the end, what matters isn't whether the sheets are wet, what matters is whether the heart feels seen, safe, and loved. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And remember, take care of yourself because you're worth it. If today's conversation opened your eyes or made you think differently about intimacy, don't let it stop here. Hit the like button so more people can discover this message, share it with a friend who might need reassurance, and don't forget to subscribe for more honest, science-based discussions about sexuality, health, and relationships at every age. Your journey of connection and self-discovery doesn't end with one video. It's a lifelong adventure, and we're here to walk that path with you. So join our community, keep learning, and let's keep breaking the silence together. Because you deserve intimacy that feels safe, joyful, and real.